Hi, good afternoon. I'm Alicia Field, the Director of Events for the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Business Success webinar, Practical Tips for Prolonged Teleworking. And before we get started today, I'd like to quickly recognize our annual sponsors that you will see here. Our strategic sponsors, our visionary sponsors, as well as our advocate sponsors. Thank you to all of them who do so much to support the Chamber throughout the year. Also, before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. Please feel free to comment in the chat box throughout the presentation. However, if you have any questions throughout the process, please use the Q&A box. You'll see it either on the side of your screen, at the bottom of your screen, but please put all your questions there and we'll get to as many of them as possible at the end of the webinar. Also, please note this webinar is being recorded and will be available via our YouTube page at the end, and I will certainly send you an email with the slides to this as well as the recording. Now on to the star of the show. I'm pleased to welcome a longtime proponent of telework, Robin Mack. Robin's the Director of Telework Technical Assistance at Telework VA, and she's helped us to navigate the space here today. Robin, thank you so much for joining us. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Alicia. All right. Okay. Here we go. Okay, you have to give me authorization to share.
Sure, absolutely. Here we go.
Great. All right, wonderful. Okay, so just want to share with you the agenda for today. We want to start with the key telework strategies for businesses and managers in a remote work environment that we have now. We want to talk about some teleworker tips during COVID-19, the free services that are offered through Telework VA, and I certainly want to leave plenty of time for questions as we go forward. All right, so before we do though, I want to discuss where we are. Because of the coronavirus, we were quickly forced into an emergency change, and we didn't really have time to prepare for this change. And we're not prepared, mentally, emotionally, or even financially for some of us. Things are in a bit of a disarray, and life has been pretty much turned upside down. And because of that, we have unprecedented telework by the masses, because not only are the majority of you who are on this webinar teleworking, but your colleagues, your family, your friends, are teleworking, and your spouses, as well as your children, are home working, for school in some capacity. And so this is anything but, work as usual right now. On top of all of that, we have high anxiety levels of stress. And, because we're all, worried about this COVID-19, the pandemic, we're worried about the health and well-being of our family members and our employees and ourselves. So it's all that coupled together, and that's where we are. And so I understand that the majority of you are, again, teleworking in some capacity, or your businesses are teleworking in some capacity. But if you're absolutely new to telework, and I continue to get this question from organizations that are saying, hey, I don't have, the time to go through the official processes of setting up a telework program. And so, can you just tell me, what is, let's get down to the nitty gritty of what can I do right now to, start the program in a condensed version. So I want to address that before we get into the other aspects of the webinar. If you are new to telework and your organization is still trying to figure this out, the first thing that you need to do is to quickly determine your eligibility. Who can telework in your organization and in what capacity, and based on the type of work that they do. The next thing you want to do is assess the technology that's needed for your people to be productive. And that could include collaborative tools, any type of technology that you're going to need for your people to be able to work effectively. Okay, and that's going to be whatever can be used to increase efficiency as well. you're gonna want to fine tune your communication processes, and that includes determining how is your team going to communicate. You know, if you're communicating by phone, making sure that there's, you know, the phone numbers are available for your staff so that you can reach each other. And of course, you know, you're communicating via email, but you're going to want to fine tune those communication processes. And for managers and executive levels, you're going to make sure that you're constantly communicating the expectations of your staff, because things are changing quickly, processes are changing, and so you're going to want to make sure that you are communicating constantly with your teleworking staff. The other thing is just clearly defining those expectations. Everyone's going to need clearly defined marching orders during this time. Who's teleworking? What are the priorities? Because the priorities are changing now. So they're going to need to understand those priorities. And again, definitely clearly communicate the expectations during this teleworking time. And the last thing I'd say is to definitely reach out to Telework VA, because that's the, you know, that's it in a nutshell, but at no cost, we can quickly fill in the gaps of the pieces that have been missing for this telework program, the pieces that were skipped to sort of escalate this process. We can definitely fill in those gaps. So those things will get you started in what you need to do. But for those of us who have been teleworking for several weeks and who are mostly working remotely at this point in time, I do want to go over some key strategies for managing this remote workforce. The first thing I would say is to definitely ramp up communication. This is the time now to step up your communication. If you're managers, executive level, step up your communication skills, both verbally and in writing, and to do it frequently. Staff are in a situation where they're seeking guidance and instruction. They need to know the direction that they should be going in. And you also want to make sure that during this time you encourage team collaboration among the staff. Have your staff meet, you know, regularly. Talk about the situation, what's going on. Talk about potential issues and figure out what the strategies are to mitigate those situations as they come up. So communication is going to be key. The next piece is to manage by results. We want to make sure this time really can be overwhelming, particularly for managers and supervisors who've never managed a remote workforce. You know, you may find yourself in unfamiliar territory, and, you know, and this is the time to sort of figure out how best to do that. So, you know, one of the things that I encourage you to do is manage by the output of your employees, the results. Another way to put it is, it's also known as sort of results-oriented management. So as you're trying to figure out how to do that, because you no longer have your employees come into the office seeing what they're doing, you are now dependent on them to produce, and you're going to manage the output of what they produce. But in order to do that effectively, you're going to have to use measurable deliverables. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. So if Tom is my employee, and I just give Tom a directive to, Tom, please finalize the draft report. This is a very vague task, and it's difficult to manage the results because the only thing I'm looking for is the complete report. But if you say finalize the report by April 9th, make sure it includes the necessary graphs and charts, and it's no more than 10 pages. Now you have some measurable deliverables, and the employee has their marching orders with clearer guidelines. So it's more important now than ever that we manage by those results. And so you're dealing with making sure that you have clearly established timelines, you know, that the focus of what it is that you're trying to achieve is clearly outlined. These are the things that are going to need to be initiated in order to manage by results. Okay, and using those measurable deliverables. And then you want to establish priorities. So because of COVID-19, you know, priorities are shifting. You know, management has to establish those priorities and then communicate those priorities to staff. So, you know, as processes are changing, workarounds are being implemented, you're going to have to establish those priorities for your staff and make sure that they understand what they are. Okay. And then for the teleworkers who have been doing this now, working from home for several weeks, A couple of tips here. First of all, if you're like most of us, you may be fighting the fact that your environment has changed. You don't have everything at home that you're used to having when you work. Your coworkers aren't there. And so all of these things play into the fact that you may not be embracing telework. But the first thing that you really need to do is to embrace telework and accept the fact that this is the new norm for now. The next thing is to get organized. So because of this emergency change, we haven't really had time to take a moment to get organized. So you need to do that because organize your environment so that you can be more productive. And that may be if you're working from a new laptop, you may need to organize your files. Your workspace at home may need to be organized. Familiarize yourself with the technology that you're using to telework. Many of you have had this technology, but you were in the office. You may have not had a need to familiarize yourself with the technology. Now is the time for you to make sure that you do that. That will be helpful. Also, make sure that you follow security protocol. Some of you are working with sensitive data, secure data that should be kept confidential. You need to make sure if your organization has an IT security protocol process, you need to make sure that you're following it. So you may be required to secure your laptop when you step away from it when you're at home, or keep files in a certain area. So make sure that you're doing that. And then as far as managing anxiety and stress, we're working on trying to maintain our productivity as employees, but then we're also on edge and stressed about the virus and whether our family and friends are safe and everything. So we're also worried about the economy and finances. So all of these things come into play when we're trying to be productive for our organizations. So whether you're a brand new teleworker or a veteran teleworker, this COVID-19 is affecting everyone in some way. I'm actually a veteran teleworker. I've been teleworking for many years, working remotely from my office. And, last week was interesting because I found myself, wanting to or finding the need to want to escape. And it's affecting us psychologically, I think, because we've been told to stay in, and now all of a sudden, this familiar work environment for me that I've had all this time now sort of feels like a prison. So these are things, whether you're a veteran or you've never teleworked, all of these things are affecting us. So a few steps here, I would say. One, step away. Make sure that you actually take your morning, afternoon, lunch breaks when you're working from home. This is going to be really important to sort of keep you focused, take a moment to take that break and then get back to work. That's going to be beneficial to help manage anxiety and stress particularly. Also, make sure that you keep a schedule. Just like you have a schedule when you go into work, you need to have a designated start and end time. Try not to work beyond your designated hours, but the schedule is going to be really important to help keep you focused during this time. And then you want to stay connected with others. So, we're all social distancing, we're working remotely, and it can leave us really feeling disconnected from everyone. But use video conferencing for meetings when possible. Sometimes just seeing a familiar coworker's face can be therapeutic during this time. So definitely try and stay connected. And then you want to take care. Try to get enough rest. Eat well-balanced meals. Try to get some form of exercise, even if it's just marching in place or going up and down stairs. All of this will really help to contribute to managing that anxiety and stress and allowing you to be more productive when you're working. And then you want to make sure that you make time for enjoyment. Whatever you like to do, of course, inside your home or wherever that's enjoyable to you, definitely during this time, make time to do that. And then you want to utilize all of your resources. If you're really struggling with managing anxiety and stress, you should definitely seek help and support. The Virginia Department of Health has information on their website with same-day access to mental health services, and the CDC website has a helpline as well. So we already have distractions when we telework, but now more than ever, we have distractions that we need to try and overcome. And so in order to overcome those distractions, the first thing we need to do is clearly identify them. Because this is important, because some of us, what may be a distraction to one may not be a distraction to others. So we all have unique distractions that we need to overcome. And so this is an exercise that we actually can all do together. If you want to do this with me, because I'm going to go through it as if I was doing it. So first thing I would say is to just sort of jot down the distractions that come to mind that you're experiencing right now. So I've identified a distraction that I call my loving family and friends. So normally they would be working, but now they're working from home. And so, what I have experienced in the last week or two is that, these folks will give me a call and they want to share with me the newest press release, the newest news, everything that's taking place now, line by line, what's happening on the news. And so I'm getting these calls repeatedly. This is a distraction that I've identified. So I have to figure out, if I'm going to continue to be productive, what can I do to mitigate this situation? So what I've done is I've said, okay, before I start my workday, pretty much I will give those folks a call. I'll say, hey, I just want to let you know, I've got a pretty busy schedule today. I've got a conference call scheduled and all these things going on. So I will touch base with you a little bit later on this evening. Okay, so that's my solution to try to mitigate some of these distractions that I'm getting. I also have some other distractions that I've identified. One is child number one and child number two. So of course I have two high school kids, a senior and a freshman, and they're constantly coming in, barging in the office saying, hey, this is happening now, this is happening now. And so I had to try to figure out, okay, why don't we say, hey, why don't we do lunch? Let's grab a sandwich, during the day, let's sit and you can tell me all about it at that time, in dinner or things like that. So actually at this time, you are really going to have a strategy in order to maintain your productivity. With everything that's going on in your household, everything that's happening, you are going to have to strategize. So identify those distractions, strategize on how you're going to come up with a solution, set those ground rules within your home in terms of getting work done and what you need to do. And then you're going to assess and adjust. How is my strategy working? Is it working? Is it not? If not, reassess it, adjust your strategy, and keep trying. Okay. And then time management. So this is another situation that's a little bit different now in this COVID-19 teleworking situation. But a couple of things that I would advise you to do is to definitely use a daily to-do list. For those of you who are not list makers, now is the time to have a list. This is going to definitely help you to stay focused on what it is that you need to do, set your priorities, and make that list. I also have an example of what I call a telework task worksheet, which just is a really simple form, but it identifies your duties, how long you think that will take you, and any status, updates or comments. This will be helpful as well to kind of keep you on track. Always prioritize your tasks. Figure out what it is that you need to get done quickly based on your deadlines that you have approaching, and prioritize those tasks and do those first. And then when you find yourself sort of losing that focus, take a quick break to refocus. Again, this is not your normal teleworking situation. This is not the way we normally do things. So you're going to have to manage your time, figure out how to strategize managing your time, and make sure that you're breaking when you need to sort of refocus and get down to something you need to accomplish. Okay, so ergonomic tips. So, when you're in the office, all of these things are already thought out for you. You already have your desk, you already have your chair, everything. You may not have that same setup in the home that you're working in. So I want to provide some ergonomic tips, because when you start to telework and you're doing it on a long-term basis where you're working like this, after a while of not having those good habits, you may start to have some problems as a result of it. So you want to make sure that you're keeping your head aligned, that your eyes are looking straight ahead, you're sitting as far from the screen as possible. All of these things are going to be important, particularly the way that we're teleworking on, what may be for definitely a couple more weeks or even months. So make sure that your wrists are straight when typing. Support your chair supporting the curve in your lower back. Your feet are flat on the floor or a footrest, and that you're taking breaks and moving around periodically. So I also want to share with you all, if you're not aware, the Telework VA program is a technical assistance program that provides free technical assistance to implement and expand your telework programs. It's a collaborative partnership between VDOT and DRPT. And the services that are offered there is that we help you maximize the impact of your telework program. And so where we are right now, most of the organizations are seeing the impact of continuity of operations. That's one of the main benefits of a telework program, is the ability to have continuity of operations during a work disruption, which we see now. So continuity of operations is what most companies are experiencing the benefit of telework. But there are many other benefits that could help your organization with the telework program, and implementing an official telework program can be extremely beneficial to your organization. We can help you develop telework policies and agreements. We can help you evaluate and identify positions that are suited for telework. And these may be those types of positions that may need to think through the process of how that position could potentially be eligible to telework. A lot of what organizations are having to do now. We can also assist with a technology plan, and we can train managers and employees. And this training really can be customized to your organization to help managers understand how to effectively manage teleworkers, and to help employees with practical tips and guidelines to be utilized when they're teleworking. We also have an exciting incentive right now, which is the I66 Incentive. This incentive offers organizations $1,000 per employee who utilizes the I66 during their normal daily commute to work. And it could be up to $10,000 per employers. So the employer is reimbursed upon approval of submitted telework-related expenses and other required documents. Some of those eligible telework expenses are shown here. And so this is something that, again, we want organizations to take advantage of, and we want them to definitely take this into consideration as their employees are working from home. Okay, and we now have some time for questions or concerns or comments.
All right, great. Thank you, Robin. We do have a question from the audience. We have a person wondering, so you just shared about, possibilities for permanent telework. If, they decide to go beyond this, and once things go back to normal, what are the steps they should take? Should they just reach out to you? What are the first steps for permanent telework? Try to move forward with that.
Sure, absolutely. So we can assist with that through the Telework VA program. We'll take a look at the organization and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Most organizations have a combination of folks who telework, and they may, again, may come in 1 day or 2 days a week. Others may have a unit that may be completely remote work because it makes sense for that organization to work from home completely. So usually it's a combination within an organization, but that's something that we can certainly help you figure out by just reaching out to me through the Telework VA program and assessing the situation.
Okay, great, thanks. Yep, and we see your contact information here, your email and your phone number, so people can grab that now, and certainly it'll be shared after the event as well.
Definitely.
And then let's see. So for people, since we're in this situation right now and it seems like it's going to be a while longer, another question is, so you've shared some great advice here and certainly people get the PowerPoint. Are there other resources on your website that people can look at? That would be helpful.
So the Telework VA website, which is administered through the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. They do have some information on there. If you go through, it'll be some guidelines and frequently asked questions, and those things can definitely be helpful. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see, we have another one here. How do you suggest that we access your files when you telework, when you cannot access your office?
Okay, so the question is about accessing your files. So of course, with this situation, many of us weren't really prepared to be able to telework. And so I understand that a lot of folks don't have access to their files. They don't have access to the things that they needed to be able to telework. And this is an unfortunate situation. This is something that, your management, your IT group will have to be able to work through individually with the organizations to try to figure out how best to do that. Again, people are sort of doing like a quasi type telework because they may have access to some things and they don't have access to others. So depending upon the technology that your firm is embracing or working through will determine how you're going to access those files. So that's going to really vary from organization to organization.
Right. No, that makes sense. Thank you. Because hopefully people were able to take some things home
Right.
or something ahead of time. But if not, I guess really generally try to talk to their IT person or provider.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, let's see. I'm going to double check the chat, but I think that's all the questions we have so far, unless anyone wants to submit some right now before we sign off.
Yeah. So I just want to make another comment though, again, for most of us, this type of teleworking is really new to us, working from home consistently every day of the week. And so, I just want to say, hang in there, just try to make improvements every day. I know this isn't easy, so don't beat yourself up too bad, and just hang in there with what you're trying to accomplish. And every day is a new day to try and be better at what we're trying to accomplish.
Wonderful. Great. Well, thank you so much, Robin. We're getting a lot of chatter here and also in the QA that's just thanking you so much for all this awesome information. So I think everyone truly appreciates your time and putting this together and sharing all the great information that you have and that you've built over the years. So thank you again very much for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder, I know a lot of questions were coming in. We did record this, and we also will provide the PowerPoint after the fact. So please just look for an email from me with both pieces of information. And certainly if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to Robin, or if you'd like to reach out to me as well, I can get those questions over to Robin. Also, please consider joining us for our next series of Mrs. Success webinars. On Friday at 1 o'clock, we will be hosting one called Financial Advice for Yourself, Your Business, and Details on SBA Loans. So we planned this a little while back, but it's great because we should have the most current information. We will have a representative from the SBA talking about those loans, the process, how to apply for them, how long they should take, all of those different kind of details. He'll be there to answer questions, and we'll also have a representative from M&T Bank just to talk about commercial loans and options you have there, also about the relationships you should have with your bank right now. And we'll also have someone from FJY Financial to talk about your personal finances as well. I know we've all been anxious and looking at our portfolios constantly, so they'll try to give you some advice on how to handle that and how to get through this time. So again, that's this Friday at 1. I'll also send a link to that to register as well in my follow-up email. Otherwise, lastly, please check out restonchamber.org. Our homepage has a COVID-19 resources page. So it's business resources. It also has links to these past webinars, also just restaurants that are still open. So lots of information that we're continually updating. So please feel free to check out that website. Lastly, just want to thank Robin one more time, and thank you all so much for joining us today. Stay safe and take care. Thank you, everyone.